Jamaica. Claudia Edwards Bethel was a Jamaican woman living in the Bahamas. In 2014, Claudia was unlawfully detained and brutally raped by a senior immigration officer. She sued, and the local Bahamian courts did something disgraceful. They argued that while the officer was guilty, the state wasn't responsible for his actions. In other words, they tried to wash their hands of state-sponsored trauma. Claudia spent 11 agonizing years fighting that local system. She fought it until May of 2021, when she contracted COVID-19 and died in a Nassau hospital, just one day after giving birth to her fourth child. She died exhausted without ever seeing justice. It wasn't until June of 2026 that the Judicial Committee of the Privy Council in London handed down the final verdict in the estate of Claudia Edwards Bethel versus the Attorney General of the Bahamas. The British Lords fiercely overturned the local rulings, holding the state vicariously liable for the atrocities committed by its uniform-wearing predator. Claudia's family got justice eventually, but they had to cross the Atlantic Ocean to get it, long after Claudia was in her grave. You see, the politicians tell us we need to break free from London to achieve true dignity. But the ordinary Jamaican looks at our local institutions and asks a terrifying question. If we cut the cord to London, who protects us from our own governments? Ponder that for a minute, given the experiences. It is the exact same dynamic that played out in the 2024 Vibes Cartel appeal, when local Jamaican appellate structures were willing to overlook structural flaws and a severely tainted jury in the interest of public pressure. And so attorney Isaac Buchanan traveled to the Privy Council to secure a constitutional rescue. You see, Buchanan himself understands the intellectual argument for a Caribbean final court. But in the practical trenches of the defense law, attorneys like himself know that the Privy Council is an insulated shield. It is entirely immune to Kingston's political elite, local talk radio hysteria, and social biases. For the victim of local state overreach, London isn't a colonial chain. It is the ultimate safety valve. It is this profound public distrust of local institutions why the People's National Party is weaponizing to stall Jamaica's transition to a republic. Make no mistake about it. Both parties have explicitly agreed for decades that Jamaica should become a republic. But agreeing on how the destination should arrive at doesn't mean they want their rival to get there first. You see, when the JLP administration actually tabled the constitutional amendment for us to become a republic and to remove the British monarch, the PNP realized something that terrified them. Andrew Holness was about to secure the ultimate historical prize. His name would be etched in history as the leader who fully severed the colonial umbilical cord. So, to stop him, the PNP engineered a masterclass in political obfuscation. They didn't say no to the republic. They just moved the goalposts. After agreeing on the goalpost, they moved it. And so all the noise, all the committees, all the expensive draft bills over the last 4 years, not a single brick of the colonial structure has actually been removed. Why? Because in Jamaica, absolute sovereignty has been taken hostage by a calculated game of partisan chess, political pettiness, and structural hypocrisy. To understand how we got stuck, we have to look past the patriotic speeches and expose the cold, hard mathematical gridlock of Gordon House. You see, the government proposed a logical phased approach. Phase 1 removes the king and establishes a Jamaican president. Phase 2 handles wider constitutional shifts, including, let's call it, the apex court. But the PNP suddenly pivoted, creating a strict condition. They will not vote for a republic unless the government simultaneously abolishes the Privy Council and adopts the Caribbean Court of Justice, CCJ, in one single massive leap. Now, this is very insincere. Why is this insincere? Because the PNP knows that the CCJ is the most pluralizing judicial debate in modern Jamaican history. By itching the universally loved concept of a republic to the deeply feared concept of losing the Privy Council, the PNP successfully injected a poison pill into the legislation. They are intentionally triggering the public's anxiety about local judicial independence to ensure the Republic Bill dies on arrival, hence holding Jamaica's independence hostage just to deny Andrew Holness his legacy. Very petty. But you know, an informed citizen must look at this timeline and ask the ultimate counter question. If the JLP wanted the Republic so badly, why didn't they just pass it when the PNP was utterly broken? In 2020, Holness held a staggering 49 out of 63 seats in the House of Representatives. He had a supermajority in the lower house. Why didn't he strike then? The answer exposes the brilliant, frustrating, and defensive architecture of the Jamaican Constitution, my friends. I am breaking it down today. The JLP's phased approach and the PNP's all or nothing pivot is a problem. Now, to alter an entrenched section of the Constitution, a government needs a 2/3 majority in both houses. The Jamaican Senate has 21 seats. By law, the Prime Minister appoints 13, and the Leader of the Opposition appoints 8. 2/3 of 21 is 14. Look at the math. Even if the JLP had won all 63 seats in the lower house, the Prime Minister is constitutionally locked into holding only 13 seats in the upper house. The PNP's 8 senators held an absolute, unshakable mathematical veto over Jamaica's sovereignty. The JLP literally could not do it alone. The Constitution was intentionally designed by the framers in 1962 to ensure no single party could redefine the nation without the consent of the opposition. The final layer of this saga transitions from political strategy into jaw-dropping hypocrisy. You see, in our Westminster system, the minority party sits under an official literal title, His Majesty's most loyal opposition. Their legal loyalty belongs to the British Crown, serving as a constitutional check on the local Prime Minister. How profoundly ironic that the party screaming the loudest about decolonialization is structurally bound to the King's parliamentary framework. But it gets deeply personal. The leader of the PNP, Mark Golding, faced intense public scrutiny when it was highlighted that he held dual citizenship, maintaining his legal British citizenship alongside his Jamaican passport. The political optics were devastating. Here was the leader of the party that historically positioned itself as the radical vanguard of anti-colonialism, Pan-Africanism, and absolute sovereignty, demanding an all or nothing break from Britain. Yet, the very man asking the Jamaican people to trust local institutions and to abandon London held a British passport in his back pocket. While Golding eventually bowed to intense political fire and announced his intention to renounce his UK citizenship, the revelation laid bare a painful reality. The political elite, preaching absolute independence to the masses, often ensure they have a personal backdoor open to London. This brings the entire Jamaican electorate to a stark historic crossroad. If the citizens of this country are tired of seeing their constitutional identity used as a bargaining chip by politicians playing a game of legacy hoarding, they must realize the power doesn't belong to the politicians at Gordon House. It belongs to the ballot box. The next general election, whenever that is called, cannot be viewed as a routine political contest. It is a constitutional referendum. It has to be. If the Jamaican people want a clean, unencumbered transition to a republic, free from the moving goalposts and partisan hostage taking, the math is simple. The ruling party requires an outright 2/3 supermajority in the lower house to command the moral and structural leverage needed to break the Senate lock. But as we vote for a republic, we must honor the tragic lesson of Claudia Bethl. You see, true independence isn't achieved by simply replacing a governor general with a president or swapping a coat of arms. True sovereignty is realized when our goal or our local ministers and ministries, our local police force and our local courts are so clean, so transparent and so fair that the most vulnerable Jamaican among us can stand on local soil and get her justice while she's still alive to see it. Until then, the noise of the committees will remain just that, noise. The power to change it is entirely in your hands. Think about that. Until next time, friends, this has been Dear Jamaica, We Need to Talk. Remember to like, share, and subscribe. After all, we are one Jamaica under God. See you next time.
Dear Jamaica,
Here we call,
one people, one nation,
standing